The cabin was a symphony of chaos. Shrieks tore through the air, punctuated by ragged sobs and desperate prayers. Liam, however, remained a silent anomaly, his face a placid mask. No one noticed the way his hands, hidden at his sides, were clenched so tightly around the fabric of his trousers that the skin over his knuckles was white and raw. Some passengers were scribbling frantic goodbyes on napkins. Others tapped out final messages on their phones. It was then that a thought sparked in Liam's mind. He retrieved his own device, a specialized satellite phone provided by his demanding boss, Julian Vance, a man who insisted on being able to reach him at any moment, anywhere on the globe. A tremor of panic finally shuddered through him. He thought over his 25 years and found little to cling to. No family, no real friends, just a relentless cycle of work. A slow, bitter smile touched his lips. He found Julian's contact and began to type. The aircraft bucked violently, a savage lurch that would have sent him flying if not for the seatbelt. Luggage rained down from the overhead compartments, and a sharp, blinding pain erupted on the side of his face as something heavy struck him. A warm wetness trickled down his temple. He touched his cheek and his fingers came away slick with blood. The stoic facade crumbled. Silent tears began to trace paths through the grime and blood on his face. He gripped the phone, his fingers now frantic on the screen, the message he was composing taking on a desperate urgency. He told Julian in short, clipped sentences that he had always been fond of him. The blood from his hand smeared the screen, and the flow from his head wound dripped into his eye, blurring his vision. He swiped at it impatiently, his focus absolute. He added that he was deeply, truly fond of him. A strange sense of release washed over him, a grim satisfaction in his own dark prank. The silent tears turned to choked sobs, and soon he was weeping as openly as everyone else. Julian Vance was an impossible man. Unsmiling, meticulously precise, brilliant and handsome, with an almost pathological need for cleanliness. But he was also generous. As his executive assistant, Liam earned a salary that was astronomical, but the cost was his entire life. He was on call 24 hours a day, a ghost with no personal existence. His life, he thought with a gut-wrenching sob, had been a barren field. The plane shuddered again, more violently this time. A flight attendant was thrown across the aisle, slamming hard against the seats before collapsing toward him. Liam's last message was sent, a simple, final farewell. The phone was knocked from his grasp as he reached out, catching the woman and pulling her into a tight embrace, shielding her from further harm. He was certain death was imminent. Squeezing his eyes shut, he held onto the unconscious attendant, a desperate anchor in the storm. At least he wouldn't die alone. But the final impact never came. The captain, through some miracle of skill, wrestled the aircraft back under control. When the wheels finally touched down with a jarring screech, Liam was still braced for oblivion, teeth gritted, holding the woman in a death grip. Around him, the sounds of terror slowly gave way to hysterical sobs of relief and ragged cheers. He opened his eyes. Outside the window, the blackness of the night was ablaze with the flashing lights of fire trucks, ambulances, and police cars that swarmed the plane. A deep ache settled into every muscle in his body. It was a half hour before anyone reached their section. Paramedics carefully took the flight attendant from his arms, fitting her with a neck brace. He watched until he was sure she was stable, a small knot of tension releasing in his chest. When a rescue worker offered him a hand, Liam found he could stand, his bones miraculously intact. Descending the emergency slide onto the tarmac, he was surrounded by a sea of faces. Someone was guiding him toward an ambulance when a strange feeling, like a psychic pull, made him look up. Across the controlled chaos, surrounded by a phalanx of bodyguards in dark suits, was Julian. He was scanning the crowd with a frantic, desperate energy. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the entire world went silent. Even from this distance, Liam could see the raw terror etched onto Julian's face, a state of dishevelment so profound it was shocking. His eyes were bloodshot. His usually perfect three-piece suit was replaced with silk pajamas. And most jarringly, his feet were bare, the pale, elegant arches stark against the grimy concrete of the runway. Liam's own eyes twitched. How could a man with such an extreme aversion to dirt tolerate this? The moment Julian saw him, the deadened look in his red-rimmed eyes ignited with life. He started running, a wild, unthinking sprint toward Liam, his security detail scrambling to keep up. In the pandemonium, few people noticed the scene. When Julian finally reached him and pulled him into a fierce, cold embrace, Liam's heart, which had remained steady through the near crash, began to hammer against his ribs as if it would burst. He thought he might die right there, not in a fiery wreck, but from the sheer shock of this moment. Then, enveloped in Julian's trembling arms, his world faded to black. He awoke to a world of sterile white, and 4-line was taped to the back of his hand. A nurse noticed he was awake and bustled out to find a doctor. His head was wrapped in so much gauze he felt like a caricature. After a series of checks, memory returned in a flood. He had confessed his feelings to Julian, and Julian had run to him without even putting on shoes. A wild thought bloomed. Maybe Julian liked him back. But that didn't make sense. If Julian liked him, wouldn't he have made his life easier, given him bonuses, not worked him to the bone? Just then, the door swung open. Julian entered, followed by a doctor. He stood, arms crossed and face grim, as the doctor performed another examination. Liam felt a prickle of discomfort and kept his gaze fixed on the ceiling, unable to look at him. The doctor concluded that there were no serious issues, but noted the multiple soft tissue contusions and the 7 stitches in his scalp required close monitoring. Liam nodded, feigning a weakness he didn't entirely feel. Once they were alone, Julian didn't speak, merely watched him with a complicated, unreadable expression. The silence was unnerving. Liam decided to break it. He asked if this would be considered a work-related injury. Julian's response was a single, cold word. No. The dismissive tone crushed the fragile hope in Liam's chest. A sour feeling of disappointment welled up. He mumbled that it was fine, he had insurance. Then, forcing a casual tone, he added that the messages he had sent were just a joke. Julian's expression finally shifted, hardening into an icy mask. He repeated the word, joke, as if it were a foreign object in his mouth. Liam confirmed it, laughing weakly, explaining it was just a way to make sure Julian would remember his most loyal assistant. The forced laughter died in his throat as Julian's face darkened completely. He informed Liam that his bonus for the month was cancelled. Disbelief washed over Liam, eradicating any trace of hurt and replacing it with pure rage. He couldn't believe this man, this corporate tyrant. He had nearly died on a business trip, and not only was it not a work injury, but he was being penalized. He accused Julian of being heartless, saying even a stranger would show some compassion. He was a patient, not an enemy. He wanted to scream, to curse, but looking at the severe, chiseled perfection of Julian's face, the foul words wouldn't come. He declared that he was quitting. He was done. He punctuated the statement by weakly punching the mattress. Julian calmly stated that he couldn't. He had signed a 10-year contract. A cry of despair escaped Liam's lips. The sudden surge of emotion sent a wave of dizziness through him, and his head swam. He fell back against the pillows. In an instant, Julian's stern composure vanished. He lunged forward, his hands surprisingly gentle as he steadied Liam, gathering him into his arms. The headache was intense, black spots dancing in his vision. He could feel Julian's hands trembling. It reminded him of the embrace at the airport and of Julian's pale, bare feet on the tarmac. He found himself asking why Julian hadn't even worn shoes. Julian's lips thinned into a tight line as he seemed to wrestle with himself. Then, his voice low and strained, he asked if what Liam had said about liking him was a lie. Liam answered without hesitation that of course it was. He heard Julian let out a quiet breath, a sound of profound relief. A bitter ache spread through Liam's own chest. It was clear Julian had been afraid it was true. No one knew the truth, that he did love him. No one knew that on that plane, he had used the cover of a joke to speak his heart for the first and last time. He had told himself that whether Julian believed it or not, at least he had said it. He had never imagined this disastrous outcome. His secret love was doomed from the start. Julian gently laid him back down. Liam closed his eyes, desperate to escape the suffocating awkwardness. Soon after, Julian left. He had arranged for a private nurse and a luxurious single room. It was essentially a paid vacation, Liam thought grimly, and he might as well rest. During his stay, Julian never visited. The nurse brought him a new phone. He logged into the company's internal messaging system and scrolled through old conversations. His colleagues had been buzzing about the near disaster of Flight 117 and the heroic pilot. But the most recent messages, in a private group chat, were about Julian being seen touring a new company wing with his girlfriend. Liam's pupils dilated. He stared at the screen, his hands gripping the phone. A coworker had posted a blurry photo taken from behind. Julian, in a deep blue suit, was turned slightly, speaking to a graceful, beautiful woman. Even from that angle, Liam could see a gentleness in Julian's expression he had never witnessed before. His breathing grew shallow. A vicious, pounding pain exploded in his head. He clutched his head, curling up on the bed in agony. The nurse saw him and rushed out to call for a doctor. Suddenly, he was back on the plane. The air was filled with weeping. He couldn't distinguish reality from hallucination. It felt as if everything since the landing had been a dream. He shook his head violently, but the scene remained unchanged. The screams, the falling luggage, his vision tinged red. He touched his head, and his hand came back with warm blood. He was still on the plane. It had never landed safely. Julian's frantic run, the sterile hospital room, their awkward conversation. All of it was a dying fantasy. Terror seized him, and he began to tremble uncontrollably, crying out that he didn't want to die. If he hadn't been given that brief, false glimmer of warmth, he wouldn't fear death so much. The plane began its final dive, and a sea of fire consumed him. When he came to, he was dimly aware of voices. It was the doctor speaking with Julian. The doctor mentioned a psychiatric condition, suggesting it wasn't just from the crash but something long-standing, triggered by the event. He spoke of Liam's lack of family, of a difficult past. Julian's voice was thick with guilt. He said he was the one to blame for ignoring Liam's mental health, for thinking that keeping him busy would be a cure. How did Julian know all that? When he was fully conscious, the doctor was gone. Julian sat quietly by his bed. Liam stared at the ceiling. Julian's voice was soft when he said he was awake. Liam asked, his own voice raspy, if he was real. The fiery crash had felt so tangible, the hiss of flames so close. Julian's face was its usual stoic mask, but his actions were anything but. He took Liam's hand and gently guided it to his own face. His skin was smooth, his nose straight and strong. By the time Liam realized what was happening, he had been tracing the lines of Julian's face for several moments. He snatched his hand back, his own face burning. Julian's voice was a low murmur, full of a strange tenderness. He told him he was real, that he shouldn't be afraid. The gentleness in Julian's tone was disorienting, making him feel, for a fleeting moment, that he was cared for. Julian told him not to worry about work, that the doctor had cleared him for discharge. Since he had no one at home, Julian proposed that he move into his place for a while. There was a housekeeper who could look after him. Liam's eyes widened in shock. Julian coughed, adding that, as his most indispensable assistant, it was the least he could do. The small ripple of hope in Liam's heart was smoothed away. Just then, Julian's phone rang. Liam glimpsed the name on the screen. Isabel. Julian answered, his voice shifting to that same soft tone Liam had never heard directed at him. He remembered the photo. A bitter, self-deprecating smile twisted his lips. He went home with Julian. He was afraid. He was terrified of reliving that all-consuming fire, that hopeless descent into death. Julian's home was a sprawling penthouse in a downtown skyscraper, more than enough room for two. A housekeeper came daily to clean and cook dinner, but mostly it was just the two of them. Julian forbade him from working, granting him a 2-week leave and assigning his duties to a subordinate. Liam was gripped by a new panic, unable to eat, convinced he was being replaced. It was only after Julian repeatedly assured him he wasn't being fired that he calmed down. Physically, he was fine, but his moods were a roller coaster, swinging from moments of quiet contentment to deep, sorrowful troughs. The emotional whiplash led to long, sleepless nights. Not wanting to worry Julian, he would go to bed early and lie perfectly still, sometimes feigning a soft snore when he heard Julian check on him. But his continued weight loss didn't escape Julian's notice. He suggested a trip, perhaps to the Maldives, to relax. Liam refused, insisting he was fine and could return to work after his stitches were removed. Julian extended his leave for another 2 weeks. Liam asked again if he was truly not being fired, if something was wrong at the company. He trailed off, unable to voice his real fear. He had seen more photos in the group chat, Julian and Isabel. They looked perfect together. His colleagues were already shipping them as a couple. The familiar sour ache returned. He was plagued by nightmares. He dreamt of the crash, of Julian running to him, of Julian arranging his funeral, of Julian getting married. He would wake up with a powerful sense of world weariness. Maybe he really was losing his mind. His thoughts drifted back to his first encounter with Julian. He was in middle school. His parents had passed away, and he lived with his grandfather. Money was scarce. Hunger was a constant companion. His homeroom teacher organized a fundraiser for him. The charity felt humiliating to his teenage pride, but the thought that the money would spare his grandfather from collecting recyclables for a while made him accept it. The donation was supposed to be limited to his class, but when the teacher gave him the list of names, one stood out, Julian Vance. And next to it, $2,000, the largest amount by far. The teacher explained that Julian was the top student in the 9th grade and had insisted on contributing after seeing the notice in the office. He suggested Liam write a thank you note. He had bowed his thanks to the teacher. The money kept him and his grandfather fed for months. But he never wrote the note. He never approached Julian. He watched him from a distance. A sun-drenched boy on the basketball court, sweat plastering his hair to his forehead, his every move drawing cheers. That vibrant, confident life force had struck something deep inside Liam. For the first time, he understood the word like. And in that same moment, he understood he was different. The fear of that difference kept him away. He saw him again in high school. He was a freshman, Julian a senior. The boyishness had been replaced by a cool, refined grace. The sudden, violent thumping of his heart terrified him. As the impossibly handsome upperclassman's gaze swept over the hallway and met his, Liam was frozen. Julian seemed to pause, a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, before a small, knowing smile touched his lips and he turned away. Liam exhaled, his body trembling with the fear of being seen, of his secret being known. Then his grandfather died, and his world collapsed. He was truly alone. There was no money for the next semester, no money for food. He spent 3 days working up the courage to ask a teacher for help, but the man had dismissed him, saying there was nothing he could do. He learned then that not all teachers cared. He dropped out of school. Before he left, he did the boldest thing he had ever done. He wrote Julian a confession on the cheapest notebook paper he could find, sealed it in a handmade envelope. And on the last day of school, he pressed it into the hands of an upperclassman from Julian's class, asking her to pass it along. And with that, his secret love came to an end. He never expected to see anyone from that time again. So he was stunned when he ran into Mark, his old class president. Mark greeted him with a warm hug, launching into stories from their school days, carefully avoiding any mention of Liam's poverty, treating him simply as a long-lost friend. He invited Liam to a class reunion the next day. Liam's immediate instinct was to refuse. He hadn't been close to anyone. He had been too consumed with survival to make friends. But Mark had always been kind. He insisted, saying many people had asked about him after he left, but he had moved and no one could find him. He said that a girl, Haley, had even had a crush on him and had cried when he disappeared. Liam was astonished. In school, he had been small, malnourished, and sallow-skinned. He couldn't imagine anyone liking him. Mark laughed, telling him he had a certain brooding charm back then, with intense, clear eyes. Liam hesitated. He was, after all, a man earning a 6-figure salary now. Perhaps he had earned the right to have friends. He agreed. Mark was thrilled and immediately posted the news in their group chat. Within seconds, a reply came from Haley, expressing disbelief. Mark, grinning, wrapped an arm around Liam and snapped a photo. Before Liam could protest, the picture of him, mouth agape in surprise, was sent to the group. He sighed. It didn't matter. No one he cared about was in that chat. Back at Julian's penthouse, he found the apartment empty. After showering, he lay in bed, a mixture of anxiety and excitement about the next day fluttering in his stomach. The next morning, Julian was in the dining area when Liam came out. He announced that he would accompany Liam to have his stitches removed. Liam demurred, saying he could go by himself and that he was attending a reunion afterward. Julian simply nodded, telling him not to drink and to be back early. The doctor said his head had healed well. He asked how Liam was feeling otherwise. Liam admitted his insomnia was severe. The doctor's gaze was kind. He suggested Liam speak to a friend of his, a clinical psychologist, who might be able to help. Liam smiled and accepted the business card. He took a cab to the restaurant, a well-known upscale place downtown. The entire ride, his nerves were on fire. He kept checking his clothes, his watch, worrying if he looked presentable. Mark was waiting outside. He greeted Liam with a fist bump and let him in, explaining that several people had already arrived. Sensing Liam's apprehension, Mark clapped a hand on his shoulder and guided him into the private room. A woman with a chic, short haircut shouted his name. It was Haley. She was bubbly and direct, telling him she'd had a huge crush on him in middle school. Her easygoing manner put him at ease, though he still felt a bit shy. She insisted he sit next to her, even though she was married now. A sneering male voice cut through the chatter. A man he vaguely recognized remarked on who they let into these things now. Mark identified him as Derek, reminding Liam of the wealthy underachiever who used to bully other students. Liam had no specific memory of any interaction with him. He said nothing as Mark seated him between Haley and a quiet, bespectacled man named Alex. He didn't know most of the people here, and a flicker of regret passed through him. Alex greeted him with a polite smile, and Haley's constant, lively chatter quickly dispelled his awkwardness. Derek watched them, his face a mask of contempt. Alex leaned over and whispered that Derek was a snob who only cared about sucking up to the rich and powerful, and was only here because Mark now worked for the government. As more people arrived, many greeted Liam warmly, and he finally began to relax, feeling a sense of camaraderie he'd never experienced in school. The dinner was in full swing when Derek, already several drinks in, swaggered over. He slurred that Liam couldn't just drink soda. He had to toast everyone, especially since they had all donated money to him once. A chill fell over the table. Mark sternly told Derek he'd had too much, but Derek was undeterred. He boasted that he had given $100, enough to feed Liam's family for a week. Other classmates tried to change the subject, asking about everyone's careers. There was a mix of professions: teachers, civil servants, small business owners. Derek was only interested in those who ran companies, treating the others with disdain. He turned his attention back to Liam, asking what he did. Liam replied that he was an assistant. Derek scoffed, asking which company would hire a high school dropout as an assistant. Haley slammed her hand on the table and stood up, telling Derek to shut up, that this was a reunion, not a stage for his ego. Derek, embarrassed, shot back that she wouldn't understand, that networking was the whole point. He made a crude remark about her husband. Haley lunged at him, but was held back by friends. Liam found the whole scene ridiculous and let out a soft laugh. Leaning back in his chair, he adopted an air of authority he'd learned from Julian. In the corporate world, no one dared speak to him this way. He was Julian Vance's right hand, a man with significant decision-making power. He had no reason to feel small. He calmly asked Derek for the name of his company. Derek, thrown by the question, sneered that his family owned Infinity Media and Infinity Electronics. A few people gasped in recognition. Liam almost laughed aloud. He knew the companies. Comparing them to Vance Industries was like comparing a local millionaire to a titan on the Forbes list. Seeing Liam's expression, Derek mistook it for awe. Liam just shook his head, not wanting to engage further. He turned his attention back to Haley, calming her down and promising to visit her family. His dismissal seemed to infuriate Derek, who stewed in his corner, drinking heavily. By 10, the party was winding down. Liam decided it was time to leave. He transferred some money to Mark for his share of the bill and stood up. The door to the room had been left open. As he moved to exit, Derek intercepted him, draping a heavy arm over his shoulders. The stench of alcohol was nauseating. He accused Liam of looking down on his old classmates by not drinking and tried to force a glass of hard liquor on him. Mark intervened, explaining that Liam had a head injury and couldn't drink. Derek shoved him off, a lewd grin spreading across his face. He looked at Liam and said he knew he was into men. The world screeched to a halt. Liam stared at him, blood draining from his face. It was his deepest secret. How could he know? He was paralyzed, unable to move, his mind a roaring void. Derek, reveling in his shock, continued, saying he knew an upperclassman, a friend of his, who told him a story. A story about Liam Peterson writing a love letter to another boy. He had given it to her to pass along. Liam had never been so terrified. He prayed Derek wouldn't say the name. His whole body trembled. Derek kept talking. Haley screamed at him to shut up. He ignored her, saying his friend had found it disgusting and had thrown the letter away. A strange mix of relief and despair washed over Liam. At least he hadn't said Julian's name, but it was also a fresh heartbreak. His grand, youthful confession had ended up in a trash can. Julian had never received it. Derek was furious at Liam's silence. He wanted to see him crumble. He snarled at him, demanding he say something. Suddenly, a low, glacial voice echoed from the doorway. Why would he need to speak to a clown? Everyone turned. Standing there was Julian, Isabel at his side. Liam felt his head might explode. Julian strode into the room, his presence immediately commanding all the attention. He fixed his gaze on Derek, his eyes so cold they seemed to burn. He repeated his question, asking why anyone should have to acknowledge a clown like him. Derek stammered Julian's name, utterly stunned. Julian asked which company he was with. Derek fumbled for a business card, obsequiously introducing himself. Julian took out his phone, made a call, and instructed his subordinate to terminate all contracts with Infinity Electronics and blacklist the company permanently. Derek pleaded with him, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, a joke between old friends. Julian hung up, his gaze unblinking. He looked over at Liam, who was still frozen in place, and softened his voice. Liam, come here. Liam moved as if in a trance, walking toward him. It dawned on Derek that Julian was defending him. He backpedaled furiously, apologizing to Liam, claiming he was drunk, even slapping his own face a few times. Julian's voice cut through his pathetic display, clear and sharp. He informed the room that Liam had earned his degrees through self-study at a top-tier university, was a dual-major master's candidate, fluent in Japanese, Spanish, and French, and was the acting CEO of his company, his most trusted executive, earning a 7-figure salary. What part of that? Julian finished, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Do you find worthy of your contempt? A wave of stunned silence was followed by murmurs of admiration. Haley cheered, and Mark clapped Liam on the shoulder, saying he always knew he'd succeed. Derek's face was a mottled red, the humiliation complete. Julian informed the waiter that Vance Industries would cover the bill, then took Liam's arm and led him from the room. In the lobby, Liam remembered Isabel, who was waiting patiently. The sour feeling returned. He told Julian he could get home on his own and not to let him interrupt his date. Before he could pull away, Julian gripped his arm and led him to Isabel. He told her he was sending her home in a car, that his associate would handle the follow-up on their joint project. Isabel beamed, saying it was no problem at all, that her boyfriend was waiting anyway. With a cheerful wave, she hurried off, her demeanor completely different from the poised woman in the photograph. Liam stared after her. She was his cousin? Julian said nothing, simply took his hand and led him outside. The warmth of his grip was electric. Liam's heart began to race again. The car ride was a blur of motion, Julian driving with an urgent, focused intensity. Back at the penthouse, he pulled Liam inside, his breathing heavy. Before Liam could speak, Julian had him pinned against the wall, his hands gripping his shoulders. He asked about the love letter, if it was meant for someone else. His voice was raw. Liam, his mind reeling from Derek's words, just stared at the floor. Was it? Julian pressed, his grip tightening. Yes, Liam whispered. Who? The single word was a demand. Liam looked up, a spark of defiance in his eyes. He asked what it mattered to Julian. He saw the light in Julian's eyes dim, the hope replaced by a familiar, desolate shadow. He couldn't bear to see it. A surge of courage, born of despair, rose in him. He met Julian's gaze, the red-rimmed intensity of it, and spoke the truth. "It was you." He repeated it, his voice gaining strength. The letter was for him. He had finally said it, letting his monumental, secret love out into the world to be judged. Julian stared at him, his face a canvas of emotions Liam couldn't decipher. Liam started to babble, saying that if Julian was disgusted, he would resign, he wouldn't bother him. He braced himself for the verdict. Julian's voice, when it came, was trembling. "Liam, do you trust me?" His eyes were blazing again, full of a light so bright it was blinding. Liam looked at him, at the man who had secretly shaped his entire adult life, and nodded. Julian released him. "Wait for me," he said, his voice thick, before turning and leaving the apartment, the click of the closing door echoing in the silence. Liam stood there, lost and confused, but clinging to one thought. He trusted him. A week passed. 7 days of silence. No calls, no texts. The hope that had flared so brightly dwindled to a dying ember. He was contemplating packing his things when an elegant, older woman appeared at the door. She introduced herself as Julian's mother. She told him Julian was at home, recovering. He had gone to his family, announced he was in love with a man and intended to marry him, and had been met with a violent reaction from his father and grandfather. She took Liam to the family estate, a sprawling mansion that reeked of old money. She led him to Julian's study, unlocking it with a key she said she'd stolen. The room was a shrine. One entire wall was covered in photographs of him, stolen shots from middle school, high school, college, working odd jobs, even his first day at Vance Industries. His breath hitched. On the shelves were copies of his report cards, transcripts, language proficiency test results. Next to each one, in Julian's elegant script, were words of encouragement. And there, on a bookshelf, was a faded blue piece of notebook paper. His letter. Beside it, Julian had written, "Why wasn't this for me, Liam?" His eyes blurred with tears. Julian had thought the letter, which had been unsigned, was for the girl who was supposed to deliver it. His mother brought over several thick journals. He opened the first one. It was Julian's diary. The first entry was about him. "His name is Liam, like a clear day. He is my clear day." It detailed every small interaction, every observation. Why did he drink so much water? He must be thirsty. He always smelled so good. He found out Liam was always hungry, and that's why he drank water to feel full. He arranged the donation. He arranged for the student union to give him paid work cleaning the stockroom. Liam wept silently as Julian's mother handed him a tissue. The entries continued, page after page, all about him. A later journal began when Liam became his assistant. "Liam is so busy today, but I don't want him out of my sight. Liam's natural scent is the one I love. Genetics telling me he is the one. Liam wore a blue coat today. I will go home at lunch and change into one as well. Liam talks to Linda from accounting a lot. Does he like her?" Liam was sobbing openly now, his body shaking with the force of his emotions. Julian's mother explained that she had only just learned the depth of her son's feelings. "He was a stubborn man," she said, "who would never have confessed unless he was absolutely certain his love was returned." The moment he understood Liam's heart, he had come home to eliminate any obstacles, to ensure Liam would never have to suffer for their love. The last entry was dated the day after the plane incident. The paper was warped and wrinkled, stained by what could only be tears. 2 lines were scrawled across the page. I pray to God to keep him safe. If anything happens to him, I will die with him. Liam remembered the pajamas, the bare feet on the runway. Julian's mother added that Julian had already drawn up a will. All his assets, his entire fortune, were left to Liam. From the moment he fell in love, she said, her son had left himself no retreat. She told him Julian was in the next room. He walked to the door, his heart pounding. He took a deep breath and pushed it open. Julian wasn't in bed. He was standing by the window, his back to the door. He must have seen them arrive. You came, he said, his voice rough. Before he could turn around, Liam crossed the room and wrapped his arms around his waist, holding on tight. Julian's body went rigid, then began to tremble. Liam heard a choked sob. He was crying. He gently turned him around and saw his face, wet with tears. A wave of love and sorrow washed over him. He reached up, cradled Julian's face in his hands, and stretching onto his toes, he pressed a soft kiss to his lips. All the insecurity, all the feeling that he was unworthy, evaporated. Julian, he whispered against his mouth. I like you. I like you so much. I have for a very long time. It's you I like most in this world. Julian's lips trembled as he repeated the words like a prayer. Like me? For a long time? Yes, Liam said, his voice firm. I like you. It's always been you. Only you. Only me? Only you. There's never been anyone else. He held his face, looking deep into his eyes. Julian, I love you. Julian's red-rimmed eyes locked with his. Finally, he pulled Liam into a crushing embrace, burying his face in his neck. Liam felt the warmth of Julian's tears on his skin, just as his own tears for a happiness he never thought possible soaked the front of Julian's shirt. From Julian's perspective, boss. Long story short, I like you. I really, really like you. The message made his breath catch in his throat. His heart seized. Before the joy could fully register, another message arrived. Boss, farewell. He shot up from his desk. What did that mean? He called Liam's phone. No answer. A breaking news alert flashed across his monitor. European Air Flight 117 has lost contact. Current status unknown. A roar filled his ears, and the world tilted. He shakily dialed his uncle at the airport, but his uncle's words were a distant buzz. All he could feel was the life draining out of him. He ran, shouting orders, his mind a blank, cold panic. His driver was waiting, along with several cars of security. He didn't know what he told them to do. He was just an automaton of fear. In the car, he frantically refreshed the news, called everyone he knew for information. He was terrified to look, terrified to see the confirmation of a crash. His mind was a white void. His body shook uncontrollably. He kept dialing Liam's number. No one answered the satellite phone he'd insisted Liam carry. Had something already happened? The thought was a physical blow. He curled into a ball in the back seat, clutching his head, a primal fear consuming him. The driver asked if he needed a hospital. He roared at him to get to the airport. He couldn't imagine Liam's fear. Would he be in pain? The thought shattered him. He hated himself for sending him on this trip. He would never forgive himself. When they arrived, the flashing lights of the emergency vehicles confirmed his worst fears. He prayed, his eyes scanning the dark sky. And then, a miracle. The plane appeared, descending for a landing. It was safe. His heart restarted. But he was paralyzed by a new fear. He couldn't bring himself to move closer, his courage utterly spent. People began to evacuate. Paramedics rushed onto the plane, carrying the injured out on stretchers. He scanned every face, his vision blurring. Security held him back. And then he saw him, his Liam. His head was covered in blood, and he was staring right at him with a dazed look. He broke through the cordon and ran, heedless of everything else. The feeling of seeing him alive was like being born again. Finally, he had him in his arms, solid and real. He was alive. He thanked God for giving him back. When Liam fainted, he followed the paramedics to the hospital, his hand clutching Liam's, refusing to let go, as if releasing him would mean losing him forever. He watched over him all night. When he awoke, he told him the confession was a joke. It didn't matter. Nothing mattered, as long as he was alive. He wouldn't ask for more. He just begged the universe not to take him away. Back home, he called his lawyer and drew up a will. He had to leave something for Liam. Life was too fragile. If he were to die, he needed to know Liam was protected. He left him everything. Every property, every dollar. If he lived, Liam would always have a place at his company. If Liam were to die first, he knew he would follow him. In his diary, he wrote a promise, a vow that was also his last will and testament. I love Liam, and I hope one day he will love me too.